So good morning to everyone and welcome to our first lecture in the subject audio production. Okay, well basically this is something like a prerequisite of our subject from the previous semester, which is the video production. Okay, because basically what we are commonly producing to serve as an educational technology that can help us to deliver our lessons or our lecture to our students is by using the what we are calling as the audio visual media. Okay, because we believe that the students can learn more or students can absorb learning and knowledge more if they can actually see using their eyes and hear what we are trying to teach them, and meron tayong tinatawag na cone of learning by Edgar Dale, okay, na kung saan it is said that students can learn more or can perceive or can remember more if they can both use their seeing and hearing senses, okay, rather than just by seeing or just by hearing the lessons of the teachers. Okay, and what I will show you with you is the illustration of that cone of learning or cone of experience according to Edgar Dale's theory. Okay, now we can see on the cone of learning, or in this cone of learning, that students can generally remember 10% of what they read, 20% of what they hear, and 30% of what they see, and 50% of what they can both see and hear, and 70% of what they say and write, and 90% of what they do as they perform the task or the activity that we allow them to perform. Okay, and based from this cone of learning by Edgar Dale, kayo as future teachers, we can base our teaching strategies na pwede natin gawin from this cone of learning theory. Okay, let's say for example, ano yung mga different teaching strategies na pwede natin gawin in this new normal of teaching and learning. Okay, in this time of pandemic brought by COVID-19, now what we are doing, or what the majority of the educational institutions are doing, is using modules or instructional materials since we can still go back with the face-to-face classes. Okay, but students can remember the lessons only by 10%. Okay, and there are also some schools, as I noticed, that may mga ilang elementary schools, since the DepEd made a tie-up with some of the regional radio stations, that they set up let's say radio recording devices in their schools, and their teachers are giving lectures while they are on air, on the frequency of the radio stations, and students are just listening from their respective homes, and according to Edgar Dale, students who are just listening can generally remember 20% of what they hear, so ito yung tinatawag natin na retention rate. And when we say retention rate, it is what our mind absorb or what we kept in our memory. Okay, however, we can also take aside the fact na meron tayong tinatawag na the different learning style or the different learning preferences ng bawat students. Okay, na kung saan in this different learning styles, students let's say typically excel with one particular learning style or with one particular learning preferences. Okay, and one type of that learning style is yung tinatawag natin na auditory learning. Okay, and this is when this subject na pag-aaralan natin becomes important. And you, as future teachers, it is really important for us to have the audio production knowledge and experience that we can use in the future once you are on the field of or practicing your teaching profession. Okay, now what is this auditory learning? Ano itong tinatawag natin na auditory learning? Okay, itong tinatawag natin na auditory learning, it is when our students learn best through listening. Okay, or if you are a student, let's say that you learn best through auditory learning, you prefer to listen from the lectures of your teachers, kahit hindi mo siya nakikita or kahit hindi mo nakikita ang presentation na pinapresent ni teacher, or kahit walang PowerPoint presentation, basta nakikinig ka lang sa teacher mo, you will learn. Ito yung mga tinatawag natin na auditory learning. Okay, and there are students that one of their learning preferences or learning style is the what we are calling as the auditory learning. Okay, and this is one of the reasons why this subject is included in your curriculum. Okay, so aside from learning the basic knowledge of the print production and video production, no, na pinag-aralan natin on the previous semester, no, that the video production and audio product or print production, no, that we can use as one of the educational technologies or instructional materials. No, audio production is also equally important. Okay, audio production that we can use in our teaching strategies would be a great help for our students who learn best through yung tinatawag nga natin, no, na auditory learning. Okay, na kung saan in this new normal of teaching and learning, no, na ginagawa natin because of the pandemic, okay, it will be great for us as teachers na maging mas effective and efficient ang pagtuturo natin, either synchronous or asynchronous. Okay, and we are sa time natin ngayon, no, we are lucky enough that since we are now in a technologically advanced environment, we have all the possible resources, no, that we would be needing, and everything is available online. Okay, all of the possible tools and applications or softwares na pwede natin gamitin are all available and downloadable online. Okay, and every one of you is already, I think every one of you is already familiar with the podcast, no, because it is currently one of the mainstream, no, na kung saan the podcast these days is already being used for classroom instructions or for classroom lectures and discussions. Okay, and it will be more of a convenience, no, for students, especially for those asynchronous learners, no, because they can have the access of the recorded audio lectures provided or created, produced by their teachers, no, via their mobile devices or Android phones, no, na talagang we can say that new technologies always have a heavy impact on education, and podcasting and using this audio production is no different. Okay, now because we can say that podcasting is one of the most or the latest mediums to emerge into this mainstream, no? So what are the benefits or advantages of using the audio production in teaching and learning? Okay, now for me, the first benefit of using audio production in education is it offers opportunity now for teachers to easily broadcast or record, let's say, engaging audio contents or audio lectures, no, in which students can then listen to that recorded audio or lectures at any time or whenever they are, or it can also improve, no, the opportunity of using the podcast in education is it can improve the teaching and learning practice of teachers and students respectively. Okay, and I think the second advantage of using audio production in education is its yung tinatawag natin na portability and convenience, no, that they can offer for students, no, kasi audio outputs or podcasts, no, for example, can be downloaded to a mobile device or Android phones, no, that will allow the students to access that learning resources anytime and anywhere, no, of course with a very little effort, no, na dapat kahit pa paano meron silang data or connection to download, and applications, no, can be easily downloaded to their mobile devices or Android phones, and this makes the process even easier, and it also paves the way for truly flexible learning. Okay, so one of the great powers of audio production is the attention it attracts. Okay, because it's tricky to encourage students, no, to spend 30 minutes reading an article or watching a recorded lecture. Okay, that is because, no, text and video require the students full attention, no, because they need to sit patiently, they need to really watch. And just by doing just one thing, no, as you probably know, this is tricky, no, not less because of the range of distractions, just sitting waiting on the, let's say, the next browser tab. Okay, ako personally, ganun ako mas prefer ko na mas makinig, no, kaysa mas manood and magbasa, no. Kunwari meron akong isang lecture video na pinapanood sa YouTube, no, nakikinig lang ako and I'm doing other things, no. Kunwari ang tab ko is naka-open sa MS Teams, kunwari nagche-check lang ako ng mga assignment, parang ganon, no. So kasi parang mas mabilis parang mas mabilis akong maboard, no, kapag pinapanood ko talaga yung lecture video, no. So what I'm doing is I'm just listening and I'm doing other things. So kasi ang nangyayari, I can also multitask, no, parang na-absorb na kahit nagmo-multitask ako, no, na-absorb ko pa rin ang pinapakinggan ko. Okay? And as I mentioned earlier, no, it is a struggle, no, to encourage students, let's say, to watch a 1-hour video recording of a lecture. No, that's why instead of giving them an hour video recording, no, we can provide them or give them audio instead. Okay? So other thing, one of the most interesting and valuable uses of podcasting or audio production in education is the concept of student created content, no, because you might allow, as future teachers, if you are using if you will use, no, the audio production or the podcast, using that kind of teaching strategy might allow your students, no, to create their own podcasts. Now, perhaps including questions, discussions, presentations, or projects. Okay. Now, this can then be made available to their classmates. Okay, and this allows students to take control of an aspect of their education, and therefore encourages engagement, no, in that kind of material. Okay, and they can also question, or they can contribute, and maybe they can teach each other. No, finally, as I mentioned earlier, no, it is a struggle to encourage students to watch a 1-hour recording of a lecture. Okay, so instead we can give them audio, and they can consume it while they do their other tasks, no. And of course, there will be some instances that students can't afford, no, to attend online class or online video conferencing because they are having difficulties with their signal or data connections, no. And when a student miss the class, no, the audio production output prepared by the teacher, no, and let's say the podcast, for example, those students who has missed a number of classes can still or can instead download the recordings of the lecture, so they are able to fill in the gaps. Okay, and when a student missed the class, no, it's not always because let's say because of their connection or they're lazy, no, but by offering an audio produced materials or reference, or by offering a podcast, no, your student who has missed a number of classes can download, no, the recordings, and matututunan pa rin nila kung ano yung mga na-miss nila. Okay? Moreover, no, since sometimes teachers are also experiencing internet, no, and connection problems, kasi teachers are not included, no, when it comes to the intermittent signal and data connection. No, students and teachers are both experiencing the same thing. Now, since hindi may iwasan that the teachers also experience the same thing, no, or let's say a teacher who is unable to attend his or her classes, no, for a week or two, no, can create a podcast or recording of the lecture instead, no, and this is made available to the students, and thus makes up for any unattended lectures. Okay, and let's say, for example, a teacher who is unable to provide lecture or to attend online video conferencing, no, makakagawa siya or pwede tayong mag-upload, or we can just upload a recorded lecture video. Okay, so it means that audio production is one of the best teaching tools that we can use for our students. Okay, and that's why, no, like what I mentioned in our orientation or in our first meeting for the semester, you can expect to experience learning, no, how to use available tools and softwares, or yung tinatawag natin na the digital audio workstations, and you will be learning how to do podcasts and how to be a podcaster used for educational purposes. Okay, so this is just an introduction, no, to our course, audio production. Okay, so on our On our next lectures, expect that I will be teaching you how to, how to start a podcast, how to make a podcast for students, how to record a podcast, and how to upload a podcast. And I will be giving you demonstration lectures or a tutorial kung paano natin or kung paano kayo makakagamit ng mga different digital audio workstations. Okay? So, that's it for now. Thank you for listening.